हेलो माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, कैसे हैं आप लोग। उम्मीद करती हूँ आप सब अच्छे होंगे। चैप्टर नंबर 18, द म्यूर्स लाइब्रेरी, फ्रॉम द बुक थीफ, रिटन बाय मार्कस यूजैक। सर्टेनली थोड़ी खांसी हो गई है मुझे, थोड़ा थ्रोट प्रॉब्लम चल रहा है, थोड़ा वर्ड्स में फ़र्क आ जाएगा। आप यहाँ से देख के रीडिंग कर सकते हैं। Certainly, something of great magnitude was coming towards 33 Himmel Street, to which Liesel was currently oblivious. To distort an overused human expression, the girl had more immediate fish to fry. She had stolen a book. Someone had seen her. The book thief reacted appropriately. Every minute, every hour, there was worry, no or more to the point, paranoia. Criminal activity will do that to a person, especially a child. They envision a prolific assortment of cottedness. Some examples: people jumping out of alleys, school teachers suddenly being aware of every sin you have ever committed, police showing up at the door each time a leaf turns or a distant gate slams shut. For Liesel, the paranoia itself became the punishment, as did the dread of delivering some washing to the mayor's house. It was no mistake, as I am sure you can imagine that when the time came, Liesel conveniently overlooked the house on great stress. She delivered at the arthritic Helena Schmidt and picked up at the cat-loving Gartner residence. But she ignored the house belonging to Burgermeister Heinz Hermann and his wife Ilsa. Another quick translation: Burgermeister, Mayor. On the first occasion, she stated that she simply forgot about that place, a pure poor excuse. If ever I have heard one as the house straddled the hill overlooking town, and it was unforgettable. When she went back and still returned empty-handed, she lied that there was no one home. No one home, Mama, was spectacle. Skepticism gave her an itch for the wooden spoon. She waved it at Liesel and said, "Get back over there now. And if you don't come home with the washing, don't come home at all." Really? That was Rudy's response when Liesel told him that what Mama had said. "Do you want to run away together? We will starve. I am starving anyway." They laughed. "No," she said, "I have to do it." They walked the town as they usually did when Rudy came along. He always tried to the gentleman and carry the bag. But each time Liesel refused. Only she had the threat of a Watson loitering over her head, and therefore only she could be relied upon to carry the bag correctly. Anyone else was more likely to manhandle it, twist it, or mistreat it in even the most minimal way. And it was not worth a risk. Also, it was likely that if she allowed Rudy to carry it for her, she would expect a case for his services, and that was not an option. Besides, she was accustomed to its burden. She would swap the bag from shoulder to shoulder, relieving each side every 100 steps or so. Leisure walked on the left, Rudy the right. Rudy talked most of the time about the last football match on Himmel Street, working in his father's shop, and whatever else came to mind. Liesel tried to listen but failed. What she heard was the dread chiming through her ears, growing louder the closer they stepped towards Grand Strasse. What are you doing? Isn't it this is?" Liesel nodded that Rudy was right, for she had tried to walk past the mayor's house to buy some time. "Well, go on," the boy hurried her. Mulching was darkening. The cold was climbing out of the ground. "Move it, Somesh." He remained at the gate. After the path, there were 8 steps up to the main entrance of the house, and the great door was like a monster. Liesel frowned at the brass knocker. "What are you waiting for?" Rudy called out. Liesel turned the face and the street. Was there any way at all for her to evade this? Was there another story, or let's face it, another lie that she did overlooked? We don't have all day. Rudy's distant voice again. What the hell are you waiting for? Will you shut your trap? Will you shut your trap? Stina. It was a shout delivered as a whisper. What? I said, shut up, you stupid sucker. With that, the faced she faced the door again, lifted back the brass knuckle, and tapped it 3 times slowly. Feet approached from the other side. At first, she didn't look at the woman but focused on the washing bag in her hand. She examined the drawstring as she passed it over. Money was handed out to her, and then nothing. The mayor's wife, who never spoke, simply stood in her bathrobe, her soft, fluffy hair tied back into a short tail. There was the suggestion of a draught from inside, something like the imagined breath of a corpse. Still, there was no words, and when Liesel found the courage to face her, the woman wore an expression not to reproach, but at a distance. For a moment, she looked over Liesel's shoulder at the boy, then nodded and stepped back, closing the door. For quite a while, Liesel remained facing the blanket of upright wood. Hey, Somensh. No response, Liesel. Liesel reversed cautiously. She took the first few steps backwards, calculating. Perhaps the woman hadn't seen her steal the book after all. It had been getting dark. Perhaps it was one of those times when a person appears to be looking directly at you when in actual fact they are watching something else or simply daydreaming. Whatever the answer, Liesel didn't attempt any further analysis. She did got away with it, and that was enough. She turned and handled the remainder of the steps normally, taking the last 3 all at once. Let's go, circle. She allowed herself a laugh. 11-year-old paranoia was powerful. 11-year-old relief was euphoric. A little something to dampen the euphoria. She had got away with nothing. The mayor's wife had seen her all right. She was just waiting for the right moment. A few weeks passed. Football on Himmel Street. Reading the shoulder shrug between 2 and 3 o'clock. Each morning post to nightmare or during the afternoon in the basement. Another binning visit to the mayor's house. All was lovely until when Liesel next visited, minus Rudy, the opportunity presented itself. It was a pick-up day. The mayor's wife opened the door, and she was not holding the bag like she normally would. Instead, she stepped aside and motioned with her chalky hand and wrist for the girl to enter. I am just here for the washing. Liesel's blood had dried inside her, and it crumbled. She almost broke into pieces on the steps. The woman said her first word to her then. She reached out, cold fingered, and said, What? Wait. When she was sure the girl had steady-eyed, she turned and walked hastily back inside. Thank God, Liesel exceeded. She is getting it being the washing. What the woman returned with, however, was nothing of the sort. When she came and stood with an impossibly frail steadfastness, she was holding a tower of books against her stomach. From her navel to the beginnings of her breast, she looked so vulnerable in the monstrous doorway. Long light eyelashes and just the slightest twinge of expression, a suggestion. Come and say it, said. She is going to torture me, Liesel decided. She is going to take me inside, light the fireplace, and throw me in, books and all. Or she will lock me in the basement without any food. For some reason, though, most likely the lure of the books, she found herself walking in. The squeaking of her shoes on the wooden floorboards made her cringe, and when she hit a sore spot, inducing the wood to ground, she almost stopped. The mayor's wife was not deterred. She only looked briefly behind and continued on to a chestnut-colored door. Now her face asked a question. Are you ready? Liesel craned her neck a little, as if she might see over the door that stood in her way. Clearly, that was the cue to open it. Jesus Mary. She said it out loud, the words distributed into a room that was full of cold air and books. books everywhere. Each wall was armed with overcrowded yet immaculate shelving. It was barely possible to see the paintwork. There were all different styles and sizes of lettering on the spines of the black, the red, the grey, the every colored books. It was one of the most beautiful things Liesl Meminger had ever seen. With wonder, she smiled that such a room existed. Even when she tried to wipe the smile away with her forearm, she realized instantly that it was a pointless exercise. She could feel the eyes of the woman traveling her body, and when she looked at her, they had rested on her face. There was more silence than she ever thought possible. It extended like an elastic dying to break. The girl broke it. Can I? The two words stood amongst acres and acres of vacant wooden floored land. The books were miles away. The woman nodded. Yes, you can. Steadily the room shrank till the book thief could touch the shelves within a few small steps. She ran the back of her hand along the first shelf, listening to the shuffle of her fingernails gliding across the spinal cord of each book. It sounded like an instrument or the notes of running feet. She used both hands. She raised them, one shelf against the other, and she laughed. Her voice was sprawled out high in her throat, and when she eventually stopped and stood in the middle of the room, she spent many minutes looking from the shelves to her fingers and back again. How many books had she touched? How many had she felt? She walked over and did it again, this time much more slowly, with her hands facing forward, allowing the door of her palm to feel the small hurdle of each book. It felt like magic, like beauty, as bright lines of light shone down from a chandelier. Several times she almost pulled a title from its place but didn't dare disturb them. They were too perfect. To her left, she saw the woman again standing by a large desk, still holding the small tower against her torso. She stood with a delighted crookedness. A smile appeared to have paralyzed her lips. Do you want me to? Liesl didn't finish the question, but actually performed what was she going to ask. Walking over and taking the books gently from the woman's arms, she then placed them into the missing piece in the shelf by the slightly open window. The outside cold was streaming in. For a moment she considered closing it, but thought better of it. This was not her house, and the situation was not to be tampered with. Instead, she returned to the lady behind her, whose smile gave the appearance now of a bruise, and whose arms were hanging slenderly at each side like girl's arm. What now? An awkwardness treated itself to the room, and Liesl took a final fleeting glance at the walls of books. The words fidgeted in her mouth, but they came out in a rush. I should go. It took 3 attempts to leave. She waited in the hallway for a few minutes, but the woman didn't come. And when Liesl returned to the entrance of the room, she saw her sitting at the desk, staring blankly at one of the books. She chose not to disturb her. In the hallway, she picked up the washing. This time she avoided the sore spot in the floorboards, walking the long length of the corridor, favoring the left-hand wall. When she closed the door behind her, a brass clang sounded in her ear. With the washing next to her, she stroked the flesh of the wood. Get going, she said. At first, she walked home dazed. The surreal experience with the room full of books and the stunned, broken woman walked alongside her. She could see it on the buildings like a play. Perhaps it was similar to the way Papa had his main camp revelation. Wherever she looked, Liesl saw the mayor's wife with the books piled up in her arms. Around corners, she could hear the shuffle of her own books disturbing the shelves. She saw the open window, the chandelier of lovely light, and she saw herself leaving without so much as a word of thanks. Soon, Her sedated condition transformed to harassment and self-loathing. She began to rebuke herself. Hume said nothing. Her head shook vigorously amongst the hurried footsteps. Not a good boy, not a thank you, not a that's the most beautiful sight I have ever seen. Nothing. Certainly she was a book thief, but that didn't mean she could have no manners at all. She didn't mean she couldn't be polite. She walked a good few minutes, struggling with the indecision. On Munich Street, it came to an end. Just as she could make out of the sign that said Steiner sketched master, she turned and ran back. This time there was no hesitation. She thumped the door, sending an echo of brass through the wood. She It was not the mayor's wife, but the mayor himself who stood before her. In her hurry, Liesel had neglected to notice the car that sat out the front on the street. Mustached, the black suited, the man spoke, "Can I help you?" Liesel could say nothing, not yet. She was bent over, short of air, and fortunately the woman arrived when she did, at least partially recovered. Ilsa Hermann stood behind her husband to the side. "I forgot," Liesel said. She lifted the bag and addressed the mayor's wife. Despite the forced labor of breath, she fed the words through the gap in the doorway between the mayor and the frame to the woman. Such was her effort to breathe that the words escaped only a few at a time. "I forget. I just wanted," she said, "to thank you." The mayor's wife bruised herself again, coming forward to stand beside her husband. She nodded very faintly, waited, and closed the door. It took Liesel a minute or so to leave. She smiled at the steps. यहाँ पे होता है हमारा चैप्टर द मेयर्स लाइब्रेरी फिनिश, चैप्टर नंबर 18. मिलेंगे हम नेक्स्ट में चैप्टर नंबर 19, एंटर द स्ट्रगलर, from the book The Book Thief, written by Marcus Zusak. Thank you friends, and bye for now. Bye.